Today we begin a 6-week series in 2 Samuel. I decided, because summer is known for a continuity of attendance, that a series would be a great idea for preaching. What was I thinking? The 2 Samuel sermons are in order, but should you be at the beach one week, they are not all dependent on one another. You'll be able to catch up. It'll be fine. But I do think there is some merit to hearing the story in the continuity of the Bible's context. The 2 books of Samuel, along with the 2 books of the Kings, tell one continuous saga. It's the story of the kings of Israel. My seminary president, Randall Lally, said that these 4 volumes could have just been named 1 Kings, 2 Kings, 3 Kings, and 4 Kings. But the first 2 books are named for the prophet Samuel, who was the last judge and first prophet in Israel. These books bear the name of the reluctant kingmaker who anointed Saul and then the younger David to follow. And because we're hearing sermons this 6 weeks out of 2 Samuel, I'm actually not beginning with chapter 1 today, but a little bit behind, beginning in some ways in 1 Samuel, because we're landing right in the middle of the story. We need to have a little bit of background. The hinge that separates 1 and 2 Samuel is the story of change, lots of change. And change is hard on any system. The biggest change that's happening in this shift is the move from a theocracy, that is a government under God, to a monarchy, a government under humans. That's a big shift. All the other nations around had a king, and by golly, they wanted one too. All the cool kids were doing it. And so the people of Israel demanded they have their own king. And this is how 1 Samuel reports it. Then all the elders of Israel gathered together and came to Samuel at Ramah and said to him, "Behold, you are old. Your sons do not walk in your ways. Now appoint for us a king to govern us like all the other nations." But the thing displeased Samuel when they said, "Give us a king to govern us." And Samuel prayed to the Lord. And the Lord said to Samuel, "Hearken to the voice of the people in all that they say to you, for they have not rejected you, but they have rejected me." And so Samuel anoints the first king of Israel, Saul. And 1 Samuel tells the story of Saul's reign. 2 Samuel tells the story of David's reign. And what marks the division, the shift between 1 and 2 Samuel, is the death of the king, Saul's death. This is the transition that leads to volume 2. And this is the season of change that makes it hard for the people of Israel in this turn. And did I mention, change is hard at all times. So let's rewind and overview the reign of Saul in volume 1. The children of Israel were slipping. It was a bad season. They were in a tough stretch. They were in their lowest season since entering Palestine, and this great leader came along. He reunited their spirits. He held back the encroaching army. He was their hero. And brave and handsome and tall, a full head and shoulders taller than most people in the region. He had all kind of natural gifts and heroic achievements, and he was a great king, at least early on. And then the wheels fell off. One interpreter quotes Robert Browning describing Saul's demise, saying, "He did not reckon with the distance between one's reach and one's grasp." And by the end of his story, there's failure and despair, and some say he had gone mad. He tried several times to kill David, and in the end of his tragic story, he took his own life falling on his sword. So now, Israel's at a low place again. Their hopes are dashed. And here we are to chapter 1 of 2 Samuel, our text for today. David's returned from battle, staying 2 days in Ziklag, which he knew where it was, but nobody else seems to. He had a room in Ziklag, but no interpreter can find it on a map. He's just learned that his king and his dear Jonathan have both died. And he begins his lament. A lament is an expression of grief in written form, and grief-stricken, he orders everybody in Judah to be taught the lament of the bow, a poetic lament that he learned from another ancient writing. All in all, this is a good change for the Israelites. Saul's reign had gone off the rails. He was losing it at the end. It was time for a change in leadership. This is a good transition in their history, but any transition, is still difficult. A popular leadership book published by Harvard Business Press declares that people do not resist change per se, people resist loss. And isn't that true? To change to something means the loss of something that was, and the painful part of change is what we have to give up. And even good change is stressful and painful and has loss. When I went off to college, good change. Move-in day, I unpacked the used mini fridge, got it plugged in, unwrapped the new stiff sheets for my single bed. They had really hard creases. They looked permanent. It was an exciting day. We were moving stuff in. I had brand new pencils that hadn't been sharpened, a new laundry basket. It was just full of wonderful excitement. Late into the evening, my parents went back to Atlanta. I got to know my new roommate, Jeff, whom I liked. He was also a Christianity major, big and athletic and likable. And late that night, when we were just exhausted and all of the visiting was over, I got in bed with the hard sheets, with the creases, and stared at the ceiling and thought, what in the world have I done? Everything in my life is different. I don't know this guy, Jeff, who's snoring across the room from me. And here in the darkness, I don't even know which side of the room my new laundry basket is on. I couldn't shut it down. I couldn't go to sleep. There was so much stress in the transition. Everything had changed. Nothing in the room felt like my room. It was loss. It was loss. And even good change is hard. Our church is undergoing change, good change, and it's hard too. Yesterday, the new leadership of the ministry leadership teams met here in the fellowship hall. And from 9 to 1 o'clock, they met and dreamed, and the energy of what they came up with, the sense of possibility, was absolutely electric. I've included their names in your worship bulletin. I hope you've looked and prayed over those already. This group of leaders is moving us to a new way of thinking about our mission together, and we are changing. But don't get too anxious. We're not changing our worship style or our core values or how to be a Baptist witness on this corner. We're not changing any primary distinctives of worship or study or discipleship. We are changing how we will deploy our witness. Our mission to Atlanta and beyond will not just be led by small committees, but beginning in August, everyone in the church will be invited to sign up for an area of ministry where you want to make your contribution. Each church member will be encouraged to throw his or her gifts into an area of ministry impact. We're changing how we structure our ministry so that we might involve the most people and have the greatest influence. The new structure has come about through the listening sessions and the great work of the ATL team. It's the mission that you, the church, declared and designed, and yet it will still be hard, because all change is hard. We're also in a staff transition. We'll soon begin the search for a new minister to children, and change is hard. Not the change, but the loss. We will lose some of what has been comfortable, and it will feel unsettled. My dorm room did not look like, feel like, or smell like my room at home. And yet that wonderful transition to college that launched so many new wonderful chapters in my life was still marked by change and loss. Many churches, when they reorganize their mission, lose it right at this part of the story. Because the dreaming sessions are so much fun and they're so energizing, the imagining of what can be sets loose all kind of energy and possibility. And most churches manage the process with sparkle until we get right here, which is the implementation. And the implementation of our plans is the hard part, because it means loss. It means change, and change is hard. When we implement our dreams, it will get tougher. So how do we as a church make this transition with grace? We might take cues from the Scripture. We might look at this story of Israel's great big transition and see if there's anything instructive for us. First, David calls for the lament of the bow. That is, David doesn't just say, Saul's dead, get on with it. Grow up, stop pouting, get on with it, let's go. Instead, David orders a season of grief. David knows that we must grieve what we lose before we can move into the beauty of a healthy future. He orders the lament of the bow and declares his own sadness. Daughters of Israel, weep for Saul, who clothed you in scarlet and finery, who adorned your garments with ornaments of gold. Oh, how the mighty have fallen in battle. But then in the first verse of chapter 2, it begins, in the course of time. In the course of time, David inquired of the Lord, shall I go up to one of the towns of Judah? The Lord said, go up. David asked, where should I go? To Hebron, the Lord said. In the course of time, God told David to go to Hebron. 19 miles south of Jerusalem sits Hebron, which translated is some combination of these words: colleague, unite, friend, alliance. God told David to travel to the place called alliance and friendship. And maybe I'm stretching this. Maybe there's no importance to the name of the city in the story, but God told David when the grieving was over to go to the place of friendship and alliance. And I choose to believe that that's an important clue for making transition with grace. I looked for the source of this story. I've heard this story more than once. I tried to document it. I couldn't document it. If somebody can document the story, would you bring it to me sometime this week? But let's just suppose it's true, since I can't document it. The story is that when Chuck Yeager broke the sound barrier in an airplane, he was interviewed later about that historic achievement. And he said that what distinguished his effort from any previous effort is that when the aircraft started shaking violently, every other attempt throttled back on the aircraft. He was the first one to press forward. He got past the disturbance by moving powerfully through it to get to the other side. We're moving forward with the design for ministry that you, the church, designed. The aircraft might shake a little bit, but we'll get to another place of calm. Mostly we need to recognize the things we need to grieve, to follow the model of David, and to grieve whatever we lose in transition. Some things will go away. But then we need to meet each other at Hebron. We need to find each other at the place called alliance and friendship, because we'll find comfort there and we'll find strength for a new day. I will meet you at Hebron. Amen. Would you stand and sing and respond?